The Hayes household was quiet that evening, the kind of silence that carried weight. Sheriff Daniel Hayes sat at the worn oak kitchen table, his badge still clipped to his shirt, though his shift had ended hours ago. The clock ticked steadily on the wall. He stared at the half-empty plate in front of him, knowing he wasn't hungry anymore, but unable to bring himself to clear the dishes. His daughter's chatter usually filled the silence, but tonight even, Emily seemed lost in thought. "Daddy," Emily finally said, swinging her legs under the chair, her feet not quite touching the ground yet. "Do you ever get lonely?" The question startled him. Daniel looked up from his plate, his brow furrowing. Emily's wide hazel eyes, the same shade her mother's had, searched his face with an intensity beyond her 8 years. "Why would you ask me that, pumpkin?" he asked gently, pushing his plate aside. Emily shrugged, twirling a curl of chestnut-brown hair around her finger. "I just wonder. You smile for me, but sometimes when you don't know I'm looking, you look sad." The words landed heavy in his chest. Daniel reached across the table and took her small hand in his. "I miss your mama. You do too, don't you?" Emily nodded. She was only 3 when Anna passed away, but the memories lived in fragments. A laugh, the scent of lavender lotion, the lullabies sung at night. 5 years had passed, but grief had its way of lingering like shadows at dusk. "I do," she whispered. Then her lips pressed into a determined line. "But I think Mama would want you to be happy again." Daniel blinked, caught off guard by the seriousness in her voice. "I'm happy, Emily, I've got you. You're my whole world." She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "I know, Daddy, but maybe you could have someone else too. Someone who makes you laugh again." He chuckled softly, trying to mask the sudden sting in his throat. "Where's all this coming from? Did someone say something at school?" "No," she said quickly, then looked down at her plate. I want you to have someone who takes care of you, the way you take care of me." Daniel swallowed hard. She was so much like Anna sometimes, compassionate, thoughtful beyond her years. He leaned over and kissed the top of her head. "I'll be okay, sweetheart, really." But Emily wasn't convinced. Later that night, after Daniel tucked her into bed and went back downstairs to sort through reports from the sheriff's office, Emily sat awake in her room. The moonlight streamed across her pink quilt, casting soft patterns on the wall. She hugged her teddy bear close, her mind whirling with ideas. Her daddy needed someone. She was sure of it. And if he wasn't going to do something about it, maybe she could. She tiptoed out of bed, careful not to let the floorboards creak. Downstairs, she knew her daddy would be buried in paperwork. Quietly, she reached for the tablet sitting on the counter, the one her father used to check emails. Her small hands tapped clumsily on the screen as she opened the camera. The idea made her heart beat fast, but she thought of Mama, of how she always said, "Love made people brave." Emily drew in a deep breath, steadied the device, and pressed record. "Hi," she began, her voice small but steady. "My name is Emily Hayes, and I'm 8 years old. My daddy is Sheriff Daniel Hayes. He's the best daddy in the whole world. He makes pancakes every Saturday. He reads me bedtime stories even when he's tired, and he never lets me feel alone." She paused, nibbling her lip. "But he's lonely. He lost my mama when I was little, and I know he misses her a lot. So I just want him to smile again, so I'm looking for someone who will love him the way he deserves. He's strong and kind, and he has the best laugh when he really means it. Please, if you think you might be the one, let us know. My daddy needs a friend. Maybe even a wife." She gave the camera a hopeful smile, then pressed stop. Her hands trembled as she posted it. She didn't think about what might happen, only about helping her daddy. By morning, the quiet Hayes household was anything but. Daniel's phone buzzed non-stop with notifications. Calls, emails, messages, women from town, from neighboring counties, even strangers who had stumbled upon the video. "What in the world?" Daniel muttered, rubbing his temple as he scrolled through his phone. At that moment, Emily padded into the kitchen in her socks, still rubbing sleep from her eyes. She froze when she saw him staring at his phone with a mix of shock and disbelief. "Emily Jean Hayes," he said slowly, setting the phone down on the table. "Would you like to explain to me why the whole world suddenly knows their sheriff is looking for a wife?" Emily bit her lip, guilt flashing across her face. "You saw it." "Oh, I saw it." Daniel folded his arms, trying hard not to smile despite his frustration. "Sweetheart, you can't just go telling people things like that. I just want you to be happy, Emily whispered. Daniel's heart softened instantly. He knelt in front of her and cupped her face in his hands. Pumpkin, I am happy. You make me happy every single day. Don't you know that? Yes, she said, her voice breaking. But sometimes I think Mama would want you to have someone too. Daniel exhaled deeply, pulling her into his arms. Oh, Emily. He held her close, letting her tiny frame melt against his chest. I don't need anyone else. I've got you. But even as he said the words, a small voice inside him whispered that his daughter might be right. That afternoon, after the initial chaos of phone calls and curious townsfolk, Daniel went to pick Emily up from school. The small brick building sat at the edge of town, its playground buzzing with children's laughter. Waiting near the steps was Miss Clara Bennett, Emily's third-grade teacher. Clara was in her early 30s. With soft brown hair she usually wore in a bun and eyes that always seemed to hold more kindness than the world deserved. She smiled warmly as Emily ran up to hug her goodbye. Sheriff Hayes, Clara greeted, her tone polite yet friendly. Emily had a wonderful day. Thank you, Miss Bennett, Daniel replied, tipping his hat slightly. He never quite knew how to act around her. There was something about her quiet presence that unsettled him, in a way that wasn't unpleasant. As Emily skipped ahead toward the car, Clara hesitated. I saw the video, Daniel groaned. Don't tell me it's making the rounds here too, Clara chuckled softly, her laugh like a ripple of water. Well, it's not every day a student tries to find her father a wife. She means well, Sheriff. Daniel ran a hand through his hair. That's what worries me. Clara's gaze softened, her expression thoughtful. Don't be too hard on her. She loves you enough to be brave. That's rare. For a moment their eyes met, and Daniel felt something stir in his chest, something he quickly pushed down. He cleared his throat. Thank you for saying that. I'll try not to be too hard on her. Clara gave him a small nod before turning back toward the school. As Daniel watched her walk away, he couldn't help but notice how naturally Emily adored her teacher, and though he'd never admit it out loud, he couldn't ignore the way his own heart seemed to beat, just a little differently whenever Clara Bennett was near. That night, long after Emily had fallen asleep, Daniel sat alone at the kitchen table again. His phone buzzed with another message. Another eager stranger hoping to meet the sheriff. He turned it face down and leaned back, staring at the ceiling. He thought of Anna, her smile, her warmth, the way she made their house feel alive. He thought of Emily, her determined little face, her brave heart. And, despite himself, he thought of Clara Bennett, with her gentle eyes and the way she had defended Emily's intentions without judgment. He sighed, dragging a hand across his face. He wasn't looking for love. Not now, not ever, he told himself. But his daughter believed otherwise, and deep down he wondered if maybe, just maybe, she was right. The following week was nothing short of chaos. Sheriff Daniel Hayes was used to managing rowdy bar fights, traffic accidents, and the occasional lost dog, but nothing prepared him for the avalanche of attention his daughter's viral plea had unleashed. Women from all walks of life were suddenly very interested in the town's widowed sheriff, and they weren't shy about showing it. On Monday morning, when he stopped at the diner for his usual black coffee, he found himself cornered by two women from the neighboring county, both batting their eyelashes so hard he worried they might injure themselves. By Tuesday, a basket of homemade cookies had been left at the station, with a note that read, "For the lonely sheriff from someone sweet." By Friday, he had received 3 casseroles, a jar of pickled okra, and a hand-knitted scarf. Though it was the middle of May. "Daddy," Emily said innocently as she watched him unload yet another dish from the back of his truck. "People sure do like you." Daniel gave her a look. "Emily Jean, this is your doing. Do you know how many casseroles one man can eat before he goes crazy?" Emily giggled, completely unrepentant. "You don't have to eat them all. You could share with me. You hate green bean casserole." "Yeah, but you don't," she grinned, showing the gap where her front tooth had recently fallen out. Daniel sighed, shaking his head. He wanted to be upset with her, but her little smile melted him every time. The town, of course, loved every second of it. Folks at the hardware store, the grocery, even church on Sunday whispered and speculated. Some were genuinely rooting for him to find someone. Others just enjoyed the entertainment. Daniel hated gossip more than anything, but he learned to brush it off. What he couldn't brush off, however, were the women who kept showing up at his office under flimsy pretenses. One came in to report her mailbox had been dented, and then spent 20 minutes explaining her amazing chili recipe. Another stopped him on Main Street to ask about a noise complaint, then casually slipped her number into his hand. Deputy Grant nearly fell out of his chair laughing when he witnessed one of these encounters. "Sheriff, you're a hot commodity now. Might want to start taking applications." Daniel scowled. "Knock it off." Grant only grinned. "All I'm saying is, Emily's got half the county working as her matchmakers now. She might be onto something." "Don't you start too," Daniel muttered, though he knew deep down his daughter's determination was unstoppable. At school, Emily had taken her plan a step further. "Miss Bennet," she said sweetly one afternoon as the children packed their bags, "do you think my daddy's handsome?" Clara Bennet nearly choked on her tea. "Emily," she gasped, her cheeks flushing pink. "Well, do you?" Emily pressed, her hazel eyes wide with curiosity. Clara bent down to Emily's level, tucking a strand of hair behind her ear. "I think your daddy is a very kind man and very brave. But that's not something for me to talk about in class, sweetheart." Emily frowned, unsatisfied with the answer. "But you're nice. And Daddy likes nice people. I think you'd make him smile again." Clara's heart squeezed at the little girl's earnestness. "Emily, sometimes grown-ups are happy just the way they are. You don't have to fix everything." "But I want to," Emily said firmly. "I want Daddy to have someone like you." Clara straightened quickly, flustered. "Pack your things, Emily, your father's waiting." But the words stuck with her long after the classroom had emptied. That evening, Clara found herself thinking about Sheriff Hayes more than she cared to admit. She had known him in passing for years. His reputation in town was solid, a man of quiet honor, who carried the weight of the community on his shoulders. But watching him as a father, seeing the tenderness in his eyes when Emily was near, that was something else entirely. Still, Clara had her own reasons for keeping her distance. Her last relationship had ended in betrayal, leaving her wary of trusting again. Besides, she was Emily's teacher. The last thing she wanted was to complicate that bond. Yet when she closed her eyes that night, she couldn't shake the image of Emily's hopeful face, or the way Daniel's deep voice lingered in her mind. Saturday morning arrived with sunshine spilling through the Hayes kitchen windows. Daniel flipped pancakes, as was tradition, while Emily set the table. "Daddy," she said casually, "Miss Bennet likes you." Daniel almost dropped the spatula. "Excuse me?" "She told me," Emily said confidently. "What exactly did she tell you?" he asked warily. Emily thought for a moment, then shrugged. "Well, maybe she didn't say it out loud, but I can tell." Daniel groaned. "Emily Jean, Miss Bennet is your teacher. She's not looking for—" He trailed off, unsure how to explain. "For what?" Emily asked, eyes wide. "First me." "You don't know that," Emily replied stubbornly. "She's perfect for you." Daniel shook his head, flipping a pancake a little too hard. "That's enough matchmaking talk, pumpkin." But his heart betrayed him with an extra thump at the thought. Later that day, the town held its annual spring fair, a gathering of booths, games, and community spirit. Emily dragged her father through the rows of colorful tents, her laughter bubbling like music. "Daddy, look," she squealed, pointing at the ring toss. Daniel indulged her, handing over a few tickets and watching proudly as she tried. Missed, then tried again until she landed a ring with triumphant glee. Clara was there too, volunteering at the bookstall. When Daniel spotted her across the fairgrounds, his chest tightened. She wore a simple sundress, her hair loose around her shoulders, and she was laughing at something one of the children said. Emily saw her at the same time. "Miss Bennet," she shouted, waving wildly. Clara turned, her face brightening as she walked toward them. "Emily!" "Sheriff Hayes." "Afternoon, Miss Bennet," Daniel said, tipping his hat. "Didn't expect to see you here." "I never miss the fair," Clara replied. "Besides, I promised the library I'd help with the stall." Emily grinned mischievously. "Daddy, can we show Miss Bennet the games?" Before Daniel could protest, Emily grabbed both their hands and tugged them toward the booths. Clara laughed nervously but didn't pull away. Daniel felt the warmth of her, hand against his, and wondered how something so simple could unsettle him so deeply. They spent the next hour wandering the fair together, Emily darting between rides, Clara and Daniel trailing behind, talking more than they ever had before. Daniel learned that Clara loved gardening, that she once dreamed of traveling, but chose teaching instead because she wanted to make a difference in children's lives. Clara learned that Daniel played guitar in high school, though he hadn't touched it in years. For the first time in a long while, Daniel felt like he was more than just the sheriff, more than just Emily's dad. He felt like a man again, a man who could laugh, who could enjoy the company of someone who understood the weight of quiet moments. As the sun dipped low, casting a golden glow over the fairgrounds, Emily ran ahead to the Ferris wheel line. Daniel and Clara lingered near a bench watching her. "She's a remarkable girl," Clara said softly. "She's my whole world," Daniel replied, his voice rough with emotion. Clara looked at him, really looked, and saw the layers of grief, strength, and love etched into his face. Her chest tightened. She wanted to tell him she admired him, that she thought he deserved happiness too, but fear held her back. Daniel caught her gaze, his breath hitching. For a moment it felt like the world slowed, like something unspoken hummed between them. Then Emily called out, breaking the spell. "Come on, Daddy. Miss Bennet." "Let's ride together," Daniel chuckled, shaking his head. "That girl of mine." Clara smiled, though her heart pounded. As they followed Emily toward the Ferris wheel, both adults felt it. The cracks forming in the walls they had so carefully built around their hearts, and though neither dared admit it yet, something had already begun to change. By the time spring bled into early summer, Sheriff Daniel Hayes felt like every corner of the county knew his business. It seemed no matter where he went, someone had something to say about Emily's viral video. The grocer smiled a little too knowingly when Daniel paid for his bread. The waitress at the diner teased him about the line of ladies waiting outside his door. Even Pastor Miller, kind man that he was, gave a sermon one Sunday about second chances in life while looking pointedly in Daniel's direction. Daniel bore it all with as much patience as he could muster. But when whispers reached Emily at school, his protective instincts roared to life. It happened one Tuesday afternoon. Daniel received a call from the principal asking him to come by. When he arrived, Emily sat in the office. Her small shoulders slumped, her eyes red from crying. Clara Bennet was beside her, one arm gently wrapped around the girl. "What happened?" Daniel's voice was sharp, his heart thudding in his chest. The principal explained gently. Some older kids at recess overheard talk about the video and began teasing Emily. They called her the sheriff's little matchmaker and made jokes about her daddy needing a wife. Daniel's jaw tightened. He knelt in front of his daughter, brushing a tear from her cheek. "Pumpkin, why didn't you tell me?" Emily sniffled. "I didn't want you to be mad." "I'm not mad at you," Daniel said firmly, his voice low but intense. "I'm mad at them. Nobody talks to you like that, you hear me?" Clara's soft voice cut in. "She was very brave, Sheriff. She told them she was only trying to help someone she loved." That shut them up fast. Pride and worry tangled inside Daniel. He looked at Clara, gratitude flickering in his eyes. "Thank you for looking out for her." Clara shook her head. "Always." For a brief moment the room faded, and all Daniel could see was the way Clara's hand rested protectively on Emily's shoulder, the kindness in her eyes. His chest tightened with something he didn't want to name. That night, after Emily was asleep, Daniel sat on the porch, staring out at the dark stretch of sky dotted with stars. Clara's voice echoed in his mind. She was very brave. He'd always known Emily was strong-willed. But the teasing at school rattled him. He didn't want his daughter burdened by his choices, or lack of them. He rubbed his face with both hands, groaning softly. "Anna," he whispered into the night, as he sometimes did, when the weight of missing her became too much. "What am I supposed to do here?" No answer came, just the chirp of crickets and the rustle of leaves in the summer wind. Meanwhile, Clara found herself equally restless that evening. She sat at her small kitchen table, grading spelling tests, but her mind wasn't on the papers. It was on Daniel Hayes. She remembered the way his voice had softened when speaking to Emily, the way his eyes had glistened with both pride and sorrow. There was a steadiness about him, a gravity that drew her in. But with that came fear. Clara had built careful walls around her heart after her last relationship ended, walls that protected her from disappointment, from the risk of being left behind again. Stepping into Daniel's world would mean stepping into Emily's too. That was a responsibility she didn't feel she deserved. Yet when she thought of Emily's small hand slipping into hers, or the way Daniel's guarded smile had flickered to life at the fair, her resolve cracked. Clara sighed, pressing her palm to her forehead. "Don't, Clara," she whispered to herself. "Don't go falling for someone you can't have." The following week, the town hosted a charity event at the community center. A silent auction to raise money for the school's library. Clara was, of course, deeply involved. Daniel brought Emily along, more to support his daughter's teacher than for the event itself. The hall bustled with townsfolk, the tables laden with donated items. Daniel bid on a set of handmade birdhouses, while Emily tugged him toward the baked goods table. Clara, dressed in a simple navy dress, moved gracefully among the crowd, clipboard in hand. When her eyes met Daniel's across the room, something unspoken lingered between them. She offered him a small smile. He found himself smiling back. But as the evening wore on, whispers circled. A group of women near the punch bowl exchanged sly glances, their voices just loud enough to carry. "Look at him showing up because his little girl's teacher asked. Maybe she's the reason he hasn't called anyone back. Poor man, still pining for his wife, and now everyone's pushing him at the school teacher." Daniel's ears burned. He clenched his fists at his side, forcing himself not to cause a scene. But when he noticed Emily nearby, frowning as she overheard the gossip too, his anger nearly boiled over. Clara, sensing the tension, stepped closer to Emily, gently guiding her away from the murmuring women. She knelt down, smiling softly. "Don't listen to them, sweetheart. People sometimes talk when they don't understand, but your daddy's a good man and you're a wonderful daughter. That's all that matters." Emily's frown eased. She leaned into Clara's hug, and Daniel's heart twisted at the sight. Later, when the auction ended and the crowd began to thin, Daniel found Clara near the doorway. "Thank you," he said quietly. "For what?" she asked, her eyes searching his. "For standing up for Emily, for always being there." Clara's breath caught. She opened her mouth, then closed it, unsure what to say. Finally, she whispered, "She's easy to care about." "So are you." For a moment, it felt like the world stilled, but then Clara stepped back, her guard snapping into place. "Good night, Sheriff." Daniel watched her walk away, frustration and longing warring inside him. Over the next few days, Clara deliberately kept her distance. She limited conversations with Daniel at school pickups, avoided lingering when Emily tried to draw her into their chats, and focused on her students. It wasn't that she didn't care. It was because she cared too much. Daniel noticed the shift immediately. Every polite smile, every careful step back, felt like a door closing. He told himself it was for the best, that getting involved with Emily's teacher would only complicate things. Still, the ache of her absence grew heavier. Emily, of course, noticed too. Children always notice. One evening, as Daniel helped her with homework at the kitchen table, Emily sighed dramatically. "What's wrong, Pumpkin?" he asked. "I don't think Miss Bennet likes us anymore," she said, her lower lip trembling. Daniel frowned. "Why would you say that? She doesn't smile the same. She doesn't talk to you the same. Maybe she doesn't want to be my new mom after all." Daniel froze, his chest tightening. "Emily," tears welled in her eyes. "But she's perfect for us, Daddy. I don't want anyone else. Just her." He pulled her into his lap, holding her close. "Listen to me, sweetheart. Sometimes grown-ups, they get scared. They don't always know how to handle feelings. That doesn't mean she doesn't care about you. But what about you?" Emily whispered against his chest. "Who cares about you when I'm asleep?" Daniel's throat tightened, emotion choking him. He kissed the top of her head, unable to find words. That night, after Daniel tucked her in, Emily sat up in bed with a new idea forming in her mind. If her video hadn't worked the way she wanted, maybe something simpler, something from the heart would. She reached for her notebook and a sparkly purple pen, the one her teacher had given her as a reward for good spelling. On the first page, she began to write, "Dear Daddy and Miss Bennet." Her little hand moved carefully across the paper, her heart pouring out in crooked letters and uneven lines. She wrote about missing Mama, about wanting her daddy to laugh again, about how Miss Bennet made her feel safe. She ended with the words, "Please just try. For me." When she set the pen down, Emily smiled through the tears that still clung to her lashes. Maybe, just maybe, this would finally bring them together. The next morning dawned bright and golden, but Daniel Hayes felt none of the warmth. He brewed his coffee in silence, staring blankly out the kitchen window while Emily sat at the table with her cereal. She seemed quieter than usual, her spoon swirling lazily through the milk. "You feeling okay, Pumpkin?" Daniel asked, forcing a smile. Emily nodded quickly. "Uh-huh." But her eyes told a different story. After breakfast, as he gathered his things for work, Daniel noticed a folded piece of paper sitting on his desk. His name was written on it in purple ink, the letters uneven but earnest. Curious, he unfolded it. "Dear Daddy, I love you so much. You are the best daddy in the world, but I know you get lonely. I don't want you to be lonely anymore. I miss Mama too, but I think she would want you to be happy. Miss Bennett makes you smile. She makes me smile too. Please don't be afraid. Please give her a chance. For me." The words blurred as his eyes stung. He sank into his chair, the letter trembling in his hands. Emily Small. Determined handwriting cut through every wall he had built around his heart. For the first time in 5 years, Daniel allowed himself to admit the truth. He was lonely. And more than that, he was afraid. Afraid of loving again, of failing. Of losing someone the way he'd lost Anna. But Emily was right. He couldn't keep living in fear. He glanced up to find Emily standing in the doorway. Her teddy bear clutched to her chest. She looked nervous, like she wasn't sure if she should have left the letter. "Come here," Daniel said softly, holding out his arms. She ran to him and he scooped her up, hugging her tight. "Pumpkin," he whispered, his voice breaking. "Thank you for being braver than your old man. I don't know what I'd do without you." Emily buried her face in his neck. "You don't have to do it without anyone, Daddy, not anymore." That afternoon, Daniel drove straight to the school. He parked in front of the modest brick building, his heart pounding harder than it had in years. This wasn't an arrest or a town meeting or some emergency call. This was something infinitely more terrifying. Telling Clara Bennett how he really felt. He found her in the classroom, tidying up after the children had left. She looked up in surprise when he stepped through the doorway. "Sheriff Hayes," she said, startled. "Is everything all right? Is Emily?" "Emily's fine," Daniel cut in gently. "She's more than fine. I came because of this." He held out the folded letter. Clara set down the books in her hands, frowning slightly. "A letter?" "From Emily," Daniel said. "She wrote to both of us." Clara hesitated, then took the paper. As her eyes scanned the words, her lips parted, her breath catching. By the time she reached the end, her vision blurred with tears. She pressed the letter to her chest, blinking rapidly. Clara whispered, her voice thick. She thinks you could make us happy." Daniel finished for her, his voice low but steady. "And the truth is, Clara, I think she's right." Clara's gaze snapped to his, searching his face. "Daniel, He stepped closer, his heart in his throat. "I've been scared. Scared of moving on, of letting myself feel again. But Emily sees things I don't. She sees how I smile around you, how she feels safe with you, and she's right. You make me want things I thought I'd buried with. Anna." Tears slid down Clara's cheeks. "I don't know if I can be what you need. I don't want to hurt you or Emily." Daniel reached out, gently taking her hand. "You already are what we need. I'm not asking you to replace anyone. I'm asking you to just be with us. To try." For a long moment, silence stretched between them. Clara's heart pounded in her chest, the walls she'd built trembling under the weight of his words. She thought of Emily's hopeful eyes, of Daniel's steady kindness, of the way she'd longed for this even while denying it. Finally, she whispered, "I'm scared too." Daniel squeezed her hand. "Then we'll be scared together." A soft laugh escaped her lips through the tears. And in that moment, something shifted. The fear didn't vanish, but it was no longer in control. When Daniel leaned in, their kiss was gentle, hesitant at first, then deepening as if years of longing had finally found release. Clara clung to him, her tears mingling with his, both of them breaking and healing in the same breath. Emily's eyes lit up, like fireworks when she saw Clara, walking with her and her father the next day. "Did you read it?" she asked breathlessly. Clara knelt down, cupping Emily's cheek. "I did, and you were right. Your daddy and I needed a little push." Emily squealed with joy, throwing her arms around Clara's neck. "I knew it. I knew you were perfect for us," Daniel chuckled. his heart swelling at the sight of the two people he loved most in the world, wrapped in each other's arms. For the first time in years he felt whole. As summer stretched on, the change in the Hayes household was undeniable. Where silence had once lingered, laughter now echoed. Clara began joining them for dinners, reading with Emily after school, and even helping Daniel in the garden. Slowly but surely, a new rhythm of life settled in, one built not on the absence of Anna, but on the presence of something new, something alive. One evening, weeks later, Daniel sat on the porch with Clara as the sun dipped below the horizon. Emily was inside, humming to herself as she colored. Fireflies blinked in the tall grass, and the air was warm and sweet. Daniel turned to Clara, his voice quiet. "You know, I never thought I'd feel this again." Clara's hand slipped into his. Neither did I. He studied her profile, the soft glow of the fading light on her face. Emily was right, wasn't she? Sometimes it takes a little help to find love again. Clara smiled, leaning her head against his shoulder. And sometimes it takes a brave little girl to show us what we were too afraid to see. Daniel kissed her hair, his heart finally at peace. Inside the house, Emily peeked through the window, grinning from ear to ear. Her plan had worked. Her daddy was happy again, and so was she. As she turned back to her drawing, she added one last detail to the picture she'd been working on. 3 stick figures holding hands, under a bright sun. A family. A year later, the church in Maplewood was filled with flowers and soft music. Sunshine streamed through the stained glass windows, painting the pews in colors of gold, blue, and rose. The little town had gathered to witness something they all secretly hoped for but never thought they'd see again. Sheriff Daniel Hayes standing at the altar, waiting to marry Clara Bennett. Daniel tugged at his cuff, his broad shoulders tense under his suit jacket. He wasn't nervous about marrying Clara. He'd known she was the one for months now. But as he stood there, he thought of the winding road that had led him here. The nights of grief, the fear of moving on, the loneliness he thought he'd have to carry forever. And then Emily's bright eyes, her brave little letter, her unshakable hope. The music shifted, and the doors at the back of the church opened. Emily stepped in first, scattering petals with all the excitement an 8-year-old could hold. She wore a white flower crown, her curls bouncing as she skipped down the aisle. When she reached the front, she gave her father a proud grin, whispering, "Told you so." Daniel laughed softly, blinking back tears. "You sure did, pumpkin." Then Clara appeared, her arm linked with her brother's, as he walked her down the aisle. She wore a simple but elegant gown, her dark hair swept up, a few curls framing her radiant face. The moment Daniel's eyes met hers, everything else faded. When she finally stood beside him, Clara's hand slipped into his, warm and steady. For the first time, Daniel didn't feel fear. He felt peace. The vows came easily, spoken through tears and smiles. They promised not perfection, but honesty, love, and courage. When the pastor finally pronounced them husband and wife, Daniel kissed Clara with all the tenderness of a man who had lost and found love again. The church erupted in applause, but Daniel only heard Emily's joyful cheer above them all. That evening, the 3 of them sat on the porch of their home, the celebration still echoing faintly in the distance. Emily was curled up between them, her head resting on Clara's shoulder, her hand clasped in her father's. Daniel looked at his daughter, then at his new wife, and whispered, "We did it. We're really a family now." Clara kissed Emily's forehead, her eyes glistening. "All thanks to a little girl with a very big heart." Emily's sleepy smile spread wide. "Mama would be happy too," she murmured before drifting off, safe in the arms of the love she helped create. Daniel wrapped his arm around Clara, holding them both close as the stars blinked awake above them. For the first time in years, the future didn't feel heavy. It felt full of promise. And in his heart, Daniel knew love had found them again, just as it was always meant to. "I just want to take a moment to say how truly grateful I am for each and every one of you. Your time, your comments, your support, it means the world to me. Every view, every like, every kind word keeps this channel alive and inspires me to share even more stories of love, hope, and healing. From the bottom of my heart, thank you for being part of this journey. You are the reason these stories come to life. With love and gratitude, Vintage Mike Tales.